This show is about to be powered by Jorge Sedano, ESPN, who we got to see in person like a week or two ago, but this time he came into the Bay Area over a weekend. He snuck in, he snuck out, and he's gone. Is that's pretty much how it went, right, George?
Yeah, man. I was in the morning and out at night. Like it was the quickest hotel stay I've ever had in my life.
Indeed, man. Sometimes that's the way to do it. What were your impressions? Because I don't think this will surprise you. A lot of Warrior fans, with the optimism of the recent run, sort of use this one as a measuring stick, and therefore Warrior fans are feeling a little hat in hand today.
Yeah, I don't blame them. And look, the reality is the proof is in the pudding. What is it? That they're 3-16 against teams that are pacing at a 50-win pace. They're just not good enough, right? Like, they're good, but they're not good enough. And I think Steph said it, right? They're fairly average. And they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat, and they've played certainly a lot better of late. And I think they're getting healthier at the right time. I just don't know if they have enough. Now, do I like the potential of Chris Paul, who was leading one of the better second units in the league prior to getting hurt when the starters weren't playing that great, now coming in there with Clay and other guys that are playing well, like Saric, et cetera? Do I like that more than what they had previously? Yeah, for sure. I think that they could still raise their level another notch or two. I just don't know if it's enough. I just think that Denver, when they're clicking, even though they lost Bruce Brown, those young guys are playing better for them, the Watsons and the Browns and whatnot, and they're just really hard to beat, man. They're so well constructed that I don't know if anybody can beat them. I think you saw the team to beat yesterday in the Bay.
Yeah, and they sure looked impressive. And even though the Warriors had that 15-plus point lead, 16-point lead in the first half, you knew Denver was going to make a significant run. George, when you look at this Warrior team now versus earlier in the year, what do you see that's made them so much better from then to now?
I just think it's health. But by the way, that 15-point lead went away really quick.
Right.
At the end of that second quarter going into halftime. That was the stunning part to me, is how quickly it was erased in the last several minutes of that first half. But I do think it's health. I think that, and I think guys are not only getting healthier, but I think Clay on that second unit makes sense at this stage of his career. I look at a guy, and Clay's like 3 years younger than this guy when he went to the bench. But I look at a Ray Allen. I know he's mentioned Manu Ginobili, but I don't think they're the same kind of player. Now, Ray Allen, that's a real comp to Clay. And I think that Ray, when you remember those years with Miami, with LeBron and Wade and those guys, he played a significant role. I mean, hell, he hit the biggest shot arguably in NBA Finals history. So I think Clay can have a significant role on the bench, and he can still be Klay Thompson. Now, granted, a lot of that was in the first half yesterday, and I thought he looked fantastic. I think that he missed shots in the second half that he was hitting in the first. They weren't falling. Like, I don't think there was anything that was done vastly different to him. He hit contested ones in the first half, and they just didn't fall in the second. So, but I like that. I like him there. They need some scoring punch off the bench. Clearly the numbers with Podziemski and Kuminga and Steph and Draymond, et cetera, and that starting unit with Wiggins, the numbers bear it out. I mean, and the tape bears it out, where they're really good with that group to start games. And I think that Clay and Chris with that second unit, as I mentioned with Saric, I think that unit can have some real success too, kind of like we saw earlier in the season. So I guess that's a long way to say that I just think health plays a big factor, and I like the fact that they're going to be able to slot guys into roles.
George, I have a completely different question for you, but quick aside, because we've taken note of the fact that you pronounced Podziemski correctly, and that's something that very few people here in the Bay Area have been able to do so far this year. How long did it take you to do that?
I mean, I don't know, the first time. I mean, Raven Ritter, you guys know, PR man extraordinaire.
The best.
He said the name to me one time in his usual morning call to me when I had them earlier in the season, and he said Brandon Podziemski, and I was like, okay, so if that's the way Raven's pronouncing it, then that's the way I'm pronouncing it. And we got a chance to meet the kid yesterday. I'd met him previously, but we sat down with him pregame, and just what a great kid, man. Like, you guys got a real good one there. I don't think there's any question. But yes, I would say early in the season when your PR man extraordinaire over there at the Golden State Warriors, Raymond Ritter, pronounced it, and I just followed suit.
Impressive. I was calling you Sedano for about 11 years, so, score one for you, George, because I've been scuffling. But speaking of Podziemski and with Chris Paul coming back, how do you think that mix is going to work as far as Steve Kerr trying to give the veterans some minutes while not taking those minutes away from the kid who's now starting?
Yeah, look, it's a delicate balance, but that's why he's getting paid, whatever it is now, $35 million over the next 2 years, right? Moving forward, those are his tough decisions to make. And I think it's a feel thing on a night-to-night basis. There may be some nights where Brandon plays more and Chris plays more, but Chris is certainly going to play the non-Steph minutes. I don't think there's any question about that. That seems to be a no-brainer.
Jorge Sedano with us. He was on the sideline for the game yesterday with the Nuggets in town right here. Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Another thing we've been discussing, George, is who's the two. It feels like the Warriors at the deadline, that's kind of what they were exploring, what they were looking for the remainder of Steph's career. Who can be a more consistent two? For years, it's been Klay Thompson. Now, that's a little shaky. He's off the bench. Wiggins and Kuminga are also candidates. What do you think? Who should be the two?
I think the evolution, I just don't know if the timeline will work out, but the evolution should be Kuminga, because Kuminga has come a long way, particularly because he's doing the little things that they don't teach you in AAU basketball or even in the G League when he was at G League Ignite. A lot of that stuff is individualistic, okay? And he's learned to play the team game, the way the Warriors have played, right? Strength in numbers, the beautiful basketball that you see in the ball movement. And he's learned, hey, man, if I just cut and I crash the boards, like I can get easy buckets because of my insane athleticism. And I feel like he wasn't doing that stuff. He was just kind of like sitting out there being a spectator. And now he's a more active participant, even when the ball is not in his hands. And I think that, to me, is the biggest growth. And I think if he continues to do that, the stuff with the ball in his hands will come to him, because that's the stuff that these guys have been working on for years. And that's honestly even more natural than the stuff I'm discussing. So I think eventually it'll be him. I just hope it's within the right timeline for Steph.
In that timeline, when you look at Steph, do you watch him play and think about the timeline being elongated? He's about to turn 36, but it doesn't seem to me that he's slowing down that much or really recessing to the mean at all.
I would agree. I think Steph can play till about 40, right? I don't think that's unreasonable, particularly because of his style of play. I mean, his ability to shoot the ball, and he's honestly in as good a shape as I've ever seen him. Physically, he's much stronger. It's crazy when you go watch some of those games when they were playing LeBron and the Cavs and whatnot, or even before then. But, I mean, that doesn't feel like that long ago, even though it was a while ago now. And his body is transformed. And I think that just comes with age and understanding what it takes to be a pro and prolong your career as long as you can when you're one of the all-time greats.
George, because you've seen them a couple times recently, I think here's the big question. Are they different now than they were at the beginning of the season, November, even into December? I think the organization would like to think that it's making some strides. Andrew Wiggins said last week, we figured some things out that could be special. What do you see? Do you agree?
Yeah, I think they're better. Again, I just don't think that they're championship good. Now, they would have to catch lightning in a bottle, and all these parts and roles that we've discussed would have to fit seamlessly, but that would be the only way I would see it.
When you look at those teams, and you saw Denver up close and personal, defending champs, they'd have to be considered to be the front runner. Is there a team in the top four that the Warriors would have the best chance to maybe knock off if they got into a series in the playoffs out of the play-in game?
Well, I think it would be kind of the same setup they had last year, right? Where you see a Sacramento type, and this year that would be OKC as the prime target, where they don't have the playoff experience as a group. And I think that maybe you can catch them. So if I'm the Warriors or the Lakers, I think that's the team you want to see. Maybe even Minnesota, although at least Minnesota went through a series last year with Denver. But OKC is kind of that team that I don't think people have a real grasp on when it comes to playoff time.
George, great stuff, and welcome to town and goodbye. since you're already gone. But yeah,
I'll
great.
be back though. I'll be back. I've got the Bucks game in about a week and a half or whatever.
Beautiful. We'd love to talk to you again, man.
All right, man. See you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, George.
There it is. George Sedano, ESPN.